Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet is constantly moving, where the animals you've hunted for generations are dropping dead, and where the ocean is swallowing your home 1 mile at a time. This is the true story of how our ancestors survived a planet that was literally falling apart, and how they used that chaos to become the masters of the Earth. If you think we have it hard today, you haven't seen what it takes to conquer a world that's melting under your feet. 20,000 years ago, the Earth was a very different place. If you stood in what is now Chicago or Berlin, you'd be looking up at a wall of ice 2 miles high. There was so much water locked up in these massive glaciers that the oceans were 400 feet lower than they are today. This created huge land bridges that don't exist anymore. You could walk from Russia to Alaska or from France to England without ever getting your feet wet. But then, the thermostat started to turn up, and the world began to bleed water. This wasn't just a slow, steady melt. It was a series of violent, sudden bursts. Scientists call these meltwater pulses. Imagine a dam the size of a country breaking all at once. Huge lakes of melted ice water, trapped behind walls of dirt and rock, would suddenly burst through, sending waves of water hundreds of feet high racing across the landscape. One of the most famous examples is a place called Doggerland. It was a massive stretch of land between the UK and Europe, filled with forests, rivers, and thousands of people. In a relatively short amount of time, the rising North Sea turned this cradle of civilization into a series of islands, and then finally, the bottom of the ocean. As the ice sheets retreated, they left behind a scarred, alien landscape. The ground was often nothing but gray mud and crushed rocks. Without the weight of the ice pressing down, the actual crust of the Earth started to bounce back up, causing massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The weather went completely haywire. Just when people thought it was getting warm and comfortable, a 1,200-year-long cold snap called the Younger Dryas hit, plunging the world back into a mini ice age almost overnight. This was the core challenge for every living thing. How do you survive a planet that can't decide if it's a freezer or an oven? For many, the answer was simply that they couldn't. The speed of the change was just too fast for their bodies to keep up. But for a small, smart group of hairless apes, this chaos was the ultimate testing ground. While the world was changing, the giants of the old world were hitting a dead end. We're talking about the Megafauna, the absolute units of the Ice Age: the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed cat, the giant ground sloth, and the dire wolf. These animals were the kings of the mammoth steppe, a giant, dry, cold grassland that used to cover the top half of the globe. The problem was that these giants were built specifically for that environment. The woolly mammoth had skin that was an inch thick, topped with a layer of fat, and then covered in 2 layers of wool. This is great when it's 40 degrees below zero, but when the world starts warming up and getting rainy, that heavy coat becomes a death trap. As the dry grasslands turned into soggy, wet bogs, the mammoths literally got stuck in the mud. Their giant feet were designed for walking on frozen hard ground, not for wading through marshes. As the forests started to grow over the old grasslands, the big animals lost their food. A mammoth needs to eat hundreds of pounds of grass every single day. When that grass was replaced by trees and moss, they started to starve. Some tried to move north, following the retreating ice, but they eventually ran out of land. On Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean, a small group of mammoths survived until about 4,000 years ago, long after the pyramids were built, but they were small, sickly, and eventually died out because they couldn't adapt to the changing world and the lack of genetic diversity. Then there's the big question: did we kill them? For a long time, scientists argued about whether it was climate or overkill. Today, most agree it was both. Imagine you're a saber-toothed cat. Your habitat is shrinking, Your prey is dying off, and you're already stressed. Then, a group of humans shows up with spears. Humans were the final straw for many of these animals. We were smart enough to hunt them when they were already weak. We used their predictable migration paths against them. By the time the world fully warmed up, about 70% of all large animal species in North America were gone forever. The age of giants was over, and the age of the tinkerer had begun. This is where the story gets really interesting. While the big animals were dying, humans were doing something no other species could do. We were hacking our environment. We didn't wait for our bodies to evolve. We evolved our tools. One of the most important inventions of this time wasn't a giant weapon. It was the bone needle. It sounds small, but it changed everything. With a needle, humans could sew multiple layers of animal skins together to make tight-fitting, waterproof clothing. In the new, rainy world of the thaw, staying dry was the difference between life and death. If you have baggy skins wrapped around you, you get wet and freeze. If you have a tailored leather jacket and boots, you can stay out in the rain all day and keep hunting. We also got a lot smarter about our weapons. In the old days, you'd just jab a big spear into a mammoth. But now, the animals were smaller and faster, like deer and gazelles. Humans invented the atlatl, or spear thrower. It's basically a stick that acts like an extension of your arm, allowing you to throw a spear with incredible force and speed from a long distance. Later, we invented the bow and arrow, which was perfect for hunting in the new, thick forests where you couldn't throw a long spear without hitting a tree. But the biggest shift was where we lived. As the land bridges disappeared, humans became masters of the water. We started building the first boats, usually dug-out canoes or frames covered in animal skins. We moved to the coastlines and started eating things our ancestors rarely touched: shellfish, seals, salmon, and even whales. This was a huge deal because the ocean is like an all-you-can-eat buffet that never closes. While the people who stayed inland were struggling to find the last few mammoths, the people on the coast were getting fat on protein-rich seafood. This led to the rise of the first permanent settlements. Because the fish were always there, people didn't have to follow the herds anymore. They could stay in one place, build stronger houses, and start gathering in larger groups. This is where we see the first signs of complex social structures. We've found evidence of huge gatherings where different tribes would meet to trade obsidian, seashells, and stories. We weren't just surviving as lonely families anymore. We were building a global network of information. As the ice finished melting, the Earth didn't stay a muddy wasteland for long. Nature is incredibly resilient. The first things to grow back were pioneer species, tough mosses and lichens that could grow on bare rock. As these plants died, they turned into the first layer of real soil. Slowly, the landscape transformed. The gray mud turned into green tundra, and the tundra turned into vast forests. This was the birth of the modern world as we know it. The Amazon rainforest started to expand. The great forests of Europe and North America took root, and the Sahara, which was actually a lush green land with lakes and hippos during this time, started its long journey toward becoming a desert. In these new forests, the predator-prey relationship changed completely. The massive, slow-moving mammoths were replaced by fast, agile deer and elk. The giant lions were replaced by wolves and bears. Because the forests were so thick, animals had to rely more on their hearing and smell than their sight. Humans adapted to this by changing their best friend. This is the era when we really solidified our relationship with wolves, turning them into dogs. Dogs were the perfect partners for this new world. They could track prey through thick brush, warn us of hidden predators like cave bears, and help us guard our new permanent camps. It was a partnership that allowed both species to take over the planet. As the ice melted and the land stabilized, the Earth began to provide much more food. Forests and wetlands replaced frozen plains, allowing the human population to grow from a few thousand to hundreds of thousands. We were no longer just a small group struggling to survive. We were thriving and moving into every corner of the world, from the high Andes Mountains to the tropical Pacific Islands. So, our history proves that our greatest strength is not our physical power, but our ability to solve problems and adapt. For the last 10,000 years, we have enjoyed a long summer of steady weather that allowed us to build our modern world. But the Earth is now shifting once again. While our ancestors stayed flexible, inventing tools and boats to survive a changing planet, we are now often locked in place by our own massive cities. To survive what comes next, we must tap into that same creative spirit. We don't beat change by fighting it, we beat it by leaning into it and inventing a new way forward.